Welcome to Andy's Garage. I'm Andy Phillips. We're back in the garage after a long time working on the Countach project. I'm going to go over a few things that we've done since the last time that we've been here. Unfortunately, as you can see, it has not been painted yet, which was the goal, but because of having some delays with that, I was able to work on some other things that were much needed. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, some of the things that were done, as I just mentioned about the whole paint thing, had a lot of other car projects, other projects going on that kind of pulled me away from that because that is a pretty major deal. And here we're going to set up a paint booth in the garage to paint it. So I was able to do a lot of mechanical stuff that was much needed. A few things that we did, we replaced the O2 sensor, we replaced the manifold air pressure sensor, did some other testing with it. We got the engine to idle better. I don't know if you remember the last time, if you've been following this, we had some issues with the high idle. Still have it, but it's not as bad. Have a couple more things that we need to tweak and replace to get that perfect. Another thing that we did is found out that the gas tank on this thing, because of the age of it and because it wasn't prepped properly when the former owner put it into storage, was completely rusting out. So we had a lot of oil leaks. I'm sorry, not a lot of oil leaks, but a lot of gasoline leaks. And we're going to go into this video. I'll show you some clips of that. And I'll also have some links down in the bottom to all the stuff that we're going to be talking about in case you want to see how to do that with your vehicles. Another thing that we had an issue with was the fuel level sensor was not working properly. So when we had dropped the gas tank, we were able to remove the fuel sending unit and replace that component, get that working as well. And then we also had a leaking fuel filler neck that we fixed that as well. So I'm going to kind of do some recaps because we're not working on it this time in the garage. As I mentioned already at the beginning, we worked on it between the last video and now. So I'm just going to show you some recaps of what we did, and then we're going to show the vehicle, and I'll show you how it's performing since we did that. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to get inside the vehicle. We're going to start it up. I'll show you how it's idling better. It starts right up as well, and then we'll go through and highlight the items that had to be fixed. All right, so before we get started on the replica and what I've done, if you're interested, I had the opportunity to actually photograph in some really in-depth detail a Lamborghini Countach 5000 Quattro valve that's for sale at an exotic car dealership near where I work. You can check that out via the link above, also down in the description. There was also a McLaren there, Ferrari F40, I'm sorry, F430, that I was able to photograph as well. The Countach was actually very cool because when it is going to be sold, it's going to be selling for $500,000, so $500,000, which is a little out of my budget. But because they're doing some work to it, they're restoring it right now. They had the rear radiator intake off on the one side, so it was pretty cool. I was able to get some really good close-ups of the radiator, the Italian fan system and stuff. So if you're interested in that, check that out. I think you'll enjoy that. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead. We're going to start this up so you can hear how well it starts up and how well it idles now that we've done the work to it. And as you saw there, it runs great. Idle's very good. Still a little bit of a high idle. We were looking at about a 24 to 2,500 RPM originally, but after replacing those components, the manifold air pressure sensor and the O2 sensor, which were knocking things a little out of whack, we have it down to idling around 1,700 RPMs, which is a lot better. Still a little too high. There's a couple other things that the OBD2, OBD1 scanner is getting off of this computer system because the ECM in this car is the old style, so it's not an OBD2, but at least I'm able to get some readings off of it. So we have a little more work to do. Now, another thing is the fuel level sensor, as I mentioned already, was replaced as part of the fuel sending unit. So if let me put the key back in here and I'll show you, we'll take a look here at the gauge cluster. And you can see how it's working now. Before it was just giving an error message because this is a decoded digital system, but take a look. You can see right here the fuel level. Now, this is a decoded digital display. If you want to see a video I did on how to set one up, they can be a little tricky how to program it. You can check that out via the link above. I'll also have it down in the description. But you can see here the fuel level, which is calculated in percentage. That's working good. So all the gauges are actually working pretty good. The only one is the oil pressure, and that's because the oil pressure sensor needs to be replaced. Other than that, everything is good to go. You can see that looks very good. And then, of course, we have these switches here, which I still need to put the bezels around them right there. They're just kind of cut into the leather right now. So that's pretty good. So we were able to get that done. Now, the fuel filler neck, which was leaking, I'm going to show you a clip here of what I did. This was the mess that we were dealing with, which was done to the vehicle, I guess, from the previous owner or whoever. But you can see it's just a big mess of just patches over the fuel filler neck. Definitely some leaking under there. So what I did is I took some gasoline, went ahead and poured some through so we could see where it was leaking from. And as you see here, as the gas is going through there, here it starts to drip out. And if we go to the other side, you can get a better shot. Look at that, just pouring down all that gas leaking out of this thing. Definitely a big issue. So what I did is I went ahead and cut that free, separated the fuel filler neck, and then I went ahead and cut all this patching off of there so we could see what was going on and clean that off so we could do it properly. So then I just took a nice new piece of a fuel hose. We went ahead and used some hose clamps, got it on nice and tight onto the actual opening piece there where you pour through, tightened it up really good, and then connected it to the neck that goes down to the actual gas tank, sealed it with just that nice patch connecting those two together. And then when I went ahead and took the gasoline this time and poured it through, you can see nothing leaked out at all. As shown there, no drips or leaks. And then just to double check, what I did next is just kind of felt around it. Everything was nice and dry, no leaking. And if you want to see the full video, I'll have the link down in the description as well, and as well across the top if you want to see how to do that. Sometimes on older cars, those things can start to fail. It's an easy fix if you know how to do it because you don't want to be obviously leaking gasoline whenever you fill it. So the last thing that we did that was a major thing on this was the gas tank issue. And here's some clips on us restoring it. And you also have along the top of that video the link to that and a link down in the description on how to restore an old gas tank. This is a common problem that can happen with those, and it can be problematic if you can't replace it depending on what kind of vehicle you have. But here's some clips of that on what we had to do with this thing. It all started when I was noticing a strong gas smell in the garage, and then I noticed this leak puddle underneath the vehicle. So the next thing I did is I dropped the gas tank, and as you can see right here, all these little pinholes I noticed when I did that, some bigger than others, and all over the gas tank. So as we went further down the gas tank here, you can see there's even more of them, some bigger than others. It was a total of over 30 of these holes that it was leaking through, just a huge mess. The inside of the tank was completely corroded. So I went ahead and I patched it with some Permatex gasoline patching, and then we took some Pour 15 fuel tank sealer, went ahead, poured it on the inside after we cleaned it properly, resealed the whole inside, and then I went ahead and recoated the outside with an undercarriage kind of coating, the black coating, to refinish the gas tank before we put it back up. So now we're going to get out here and we're going to walk around. I'm going to show you what's left to do. We've got a little bit of prepping of the body, and I know we've mentioned it probably in previous videos, but a little more prepping. Once we get back from our vacation, then we're going full force into the finishing on this with the painting, clear coat detailing, and then that'll point us in the direction of the suspension, and we'll go over all that in a minute. One of the next things that we're going to do after we paint it is these pop-up headlights here. If you saw my previous videos where we made these and we got them all set up, next thing we need to do is we need to connect the motors for the pop-up headlights and the relays. So we'll be doing that, also getting the bulbs mounted, rerouting the electric, and putting the retainers in for that. So that'll be coming up. For that, have a little bit of touching up to do around the body, especially on the fender areas where we added the extra drops on there to make it more like the original. If you want to see the video, I'll have it down in the description. Also a link across the top as well for that when we did all that body work to it. But after going over it, get some little imperfections. I'll get a close-up here for you. And you can see very minor, but still, there you go. You can see right there some little imperfections that need to be smoothed out. So all we need to do is just go ahead and fill those lightly, and then that takes care of everything there. And then just kind of go over the body, just some minor things, and that's it. And then we have the front scoop that needs to be replaced. I was going to make it out of polycarbonate fiberglass, but to be honest, if I can find one for sale, that would be a lot easier. I can make it, but it's gonna be tedious, so I'd rather buy one if possible. But let's go around here on the other side, and I'll show you what else we have coming up. Another thing is the doors. I went ahead and marked off with the blue tape, and I'll get a close-up so you can see it, but that pretty much outlines exactly the scaling and the placement and the size, along with the flat bar that we put in, of the actual windows of the real Countach. So once that's done, the weather seal and molding will go there. But another thing, and here's a close-up. And that blue tape is outlining where the actual black will go. And then the glass panels will go where, in between the flat bar, and then you'll have a black seal on the other side of the flat bar. And then same with the windshield, where you have the blue tape, that's where the actual black molding is going to go out to the edges as well. Another thing is the doors. Right now, bring it down, and it closes, but I just have these in place temporarily, just as we were kind of setting the car to see how things looked. But once it's done being painted and it's ready to be completed, I need to align the scissor doors properly, get this to close right on point. The latch isn't lining up. And then also you have the handle area here. Here's a close-up so you can see how it's slightly off. And you can see how the alignment's way off. Even the door, you can see up top how it's not completely flush. So once we get that lined up on the scissor door hinge, that will go all the way down. As you can see there, there's a gap. That'll go all the way down, and that whole black vent will then be all nice and solid and matching as shown here on a real one. So all that needs to be lined up, that way it closes nice and snug, just like on the real car. And then coming along here to the back, here's a couple other things that need to be done back here as well. So probably one of the last things that's going to be done after the car is painted is we need to put hinges here to open up the trunk. When this car was originally made by the company that made it, which was actually Final Concepts out of Florida back in the late 90s, early 2000s, they had the hinge to where this opens this way, which is ridiculous because the real one always opens that way. So what I did is I removed the hinge, and I went ahead and I patched everything up with body filler. That's also in the previous videos if you want to go back and see the progress that I did since I've been restoring it. But we're going to put the hinges up front like the real one, so that way you'll be able to take it up like this and open it this way. Now, the only difference is that on this one, the wing goes up with it. Where on a real Countach, it's split right about here, separating the engine bay from the trunk. Where on this, because it was a Pontiac Fiero, the engine bay and the trunk is all in the same opening when you open it. So a real one has that split, and here's an image of a real one so you can see what I'm talking about. So this one here will have it all as one piece. So that's going to be one of the differences with that. And then I'm going to show you up close. I have some black marker outlines where I kind of drew in where once the car is done on a real Countach, you have everything kind of outlined with like a black silicone where the pieces are actually put together. And this one, because it's all molded, I'm just going to do the black just to emulate that, but it won't really be the, actually sealing anything. But here's a close-up. And we have the black outline here around the intake vents. And you can also see it here around the wheel wells, because normally on the real one, that's all added on, and that's around there to seal it. So when it's all said and done, it's going to be accented just like the real thing. So then the next thing on here that's coming up after it's painted then will be the suspension and the lowering. Let me show you the height that we're dealing with right now. and it's only off by about an inch on the passenger side, 2 inches on the driver, because it's a little bit lopsided right now. The suspension's out of whack. So when I looked at that real Countach that was for sale, I got the measurements and the height, and it's pretty much almost on point except for that inch. So once I drop it about an inch, it'll be exactly the same height as the QV that I looked at, which was kind of like a low body anyway, so that was lower. But here, let me take a look. We'll head over there and I'll show you. So as we're looking here, you can see it's a little bit, let me get on this side, make it easier. You'll notice here, if you've been following it, before I put this drop right here, which I already mentioned earlier, you had too much of the wheel well exposed. The real one has this drop. However, the wheels are tucked a little further in. Now, on some of the older ones, the LP400S, the 500S, before they went to the 5000, the QV and Anniversary, all that stuff, you had a little more of a gap there. Now, this replica is modeled after an LP400S with the Koenig Special body package, which is the side intakes and also around the larger vented intakes around the rear wheels as well. So I'm trying to have it look like that as well. But if I stand here next to it and I mark it like this, standing next to the real one, pretty much it was right on point except maybe about 3/4 of an inch to an inch, but I'm going to drop this side down an inch and then the driver's side 2 inches, and that'll put the whole car at the right level. In the front, the back's going to be up a little bit more because in the back, you're going to have the Pirelli 345s. Right now I have the 305s, which are the Pirellis, but these are the rally racing tires, not the street tires. Street ones have a little bit bigger of a diameter, so that'll put the height all across the board with this car right on point. Even though right now we're looking at about, I think it's 41.5 to 42 inches from the ground to the top of the roof. This is going to take it down about an inch, which is going to be more in line with a low body height, even though the proportions down here are not going to be like a low body because I'm not going to have my wheels tucked in because I'm afraid they're going to be scraping right here because it wasn't made for that. But that's the last thing that we'll have to do with the suspension. And then finally, and this is once the car is all done, painted, restored, finished, drivable, tagged, all that. There's a company in the UK that actually makes a really good replica of the Rotary style rims that the Countach had, the early Countachs prior to the Anniversary, as shown here. So I'm going to go ahead and have them make a custom set for the front and back. That'll be the last touch because then that'll put it exactly. The height, the details will be as close as I'm going to get it. There's still going to be some issues with the body that I would have to pretty much remake the entire body to fix that I'm not going to be able to. But that'll be the last touch. That'll look good. And then what I'll do at that point is on the rear tires, I'll put the 345 Pirellis and then save these 305s on these rims as just rims to swap out with, because those are new tires, rims to swap out with that. And then, as I've mentioned in previous videos, because this is an unstretched Fiero frame under here, I'm about 2.9 inches on the wheelbase too short. Now, the frame has been modified, so it does have a second frame welded onto it. So the length of the body, the width, the height, all that's right on point. It's just the wheelbase was never stretched. So what happened as a result is I have 2.9 inches of a longer rear overhang as a result of that because the rear wheels are tucked in 2.9 inches instead of pulled out. So we have that. So that's pretty much all the stuff coming up with this, as well as the stuff that I was able to do that we did not film, kind of getting it to where we are. So we're making progress with this thing, coming along slowly, not as quick as I wanted to, but a lot of the mechanical stuff is almost done. Just have to tweak a couple things and then paint it, suspension, and then wire up the headlights and hinge the trunk. And then this thing is done. And then I need to detail the interior at that point because the interior, unfortunately, has gotten dirty since I last detailed it with all the work that's getting done with it. All right, well, that pretty much wraps up this video here on just kind of visiting with the Countach project once again, showing you guys what I've done so far since the last time we were in here with the mechanical stuff that was done and the fuel filler issue and the gas tank, all that stuff. So definitely a lot of stuff happened. As mentioned earlier, links to those videos are down in the description if you want to check those out. Hopefully the next time that we're in here, we're going to be getting the paint booth set up and getting ready to paint this thing so we can paint it, put the vents in it, detail it, get it looking all nice and beautiful and presentable. And then the last thing that'll need to be done is just tweaking that last piece to get the high, what's left of the high idle taken care of. And then we can work on the suspension and then get this thing done. We'll put the windows back into it and things like that. So I'm excited, definitely some fun stuff. So please subscribe to this channel so that way you're in the loop, as well as other projects I work on, from other automotive repair, home improvement projects. I have some entertainment videos that I do, like reviews of different places and fun events and beaches, all that stuff. So if you like that kind of stuff, please subscribe. I'd appreciate it. So I hope you guys like this video. Please send me any questions, comments. As always, I appreciate all the support. Please like this video, subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you next time.